Hi, I'm Mayor Steve Black and I'm running for re-election in the upcoming City of Timmins Municipal Election. My platform is based on 4 pillars. The first pillar is jobs in the economy. I think a really important project that we put a lot of work in over the last 2 years is the Noront ferrochrome processing facility. That would be a $500 million plus investment that would bring 300 jobs for the next 100 years to our community, and it's been a pleasure working with our economic development staff to get us to the position we're in now. We're down to the final 2 cities in Ontario as a selection, and I'm optimistic that by the end of this year, Timmins will be chosen as the preferred site for that facility. We have a lot of other work to do on the jobs front too. Dome Century project is in the works, and my plan is to continue working with Goldcorp to ensure that they go through all the proper process and regulations as well, but to do whatever we can from a city's perspective to make sure that project goes forward as well. That would be quite a sizable investment in the community as well, and a very important project for the future of the City of Timmins. We've done fairly well with our industrial rail park when we built that this term. We've seen Calabrian build a $23 million facility at the rail park, which has brought over 20 jobs to the City of Timmins. In my platform, I'd like to expand the industrial rail park. I think it's a critical asset in our community. When you look at where Timmins is from a regional perspective, we're obviously disconnected from a lot of the main transportation corridors, and having the ability to provide rail access to companies looking at coming to Timmins is an important part to allow them to do business and export their materials to the rest of the province and North America. So an expansion there is important. Another one is kind of topical today since we have some snow flurries out there today. In my campaign, I've been having a lot of meetings with community groups, and one of the things that keeps coming up is the snow removal downtown, and I think if we're going to let the downtown businesses prosper, we need to make it as accommodating for them, and I'd like to see us implement an improved snow removal policy for downtown to ensure that the banks are getting removed with each snowfall and that people can access the businesses downtown in a convenient way. Platform number 2 is quality of life. It's something that I'm very passionate about here in the City of Timmins, as most of our residents know. Something that I advocate for on multiple fronts. And obviously the first topic that's, I'll say, an election topic is Stars and Thunder on that front. I'm the first to admit that we need to make some significant changes there. We can't afford to see the losses that we've seen last year at the event. But when you look at the fact that almost 10,000 residents attended, there's no other event in our community that brings the Anglophone and Francophone community in such a positive manner. We've seen over 7,000 tourists come to the City of Timmins in 2 years from over 300 communities, 9 provinces, and 17 states in the U.S. So from a tourism perspective, it's a very important festival for the community. We had a provincial representative do a economic impact study on the first year of the festival, and his estimate was that it brought over $10 million of economic spin-off to the community. So I think we need to look at it, reduce it to a 4-day event so that it's more financially sustainable, base it on last year's revenues so we bring the budget in line with what the revenues were last year, and also implement a municipal accommodation tax, which is a fee on hotel guests in the community that goes towards tourism and can help cover some of the cost and ensure that this event doesn't come at a cost to the residents of Timmins going forward. The second item is the multi-use recreation center. This is another one where I differ from other candidates in the race, and I think this is a critical facility. It's much more than just a pool that some would like to say it's just a pool, but it's not. It's a full-use, multi-use recreation facility that includes a warm-up therapy pool for rehabilitation and therapy work with some seniors and others in our community that use that use. There's an 8-lane competitive pool which would be bigger than the current one and allow us to host Class A competitions instead of Class B competitions. And then there's an entirely new recreational family section that includes indoor play structures, a water slide, and a lazy river to make it a much more friendly, family-friendly facility. I think we hear all the time of people on a weekly basis making the trip up to the Cochrane facility to use that because it's a much more family-friendly facility, and I think the residents of Timmins deserve something similar. That covers the aquatic side of it, but as I said, it's much more than that. There is an indoor side to the facility as well that includes indoor courts, which would be basketball, badminton, volleyball, pickleball, number of multi-use courts, as well as an indoor walking or jogging track above that area to allow people to get in and walk around the track or jog around the track all seasons of the year. So I think that'd be incredibly beneficial to many in the community as well. And then there's indoor racquetball, squash courts, as well as some meeting spaces. And another big thing is addressing the spectator area in the pool side. We do not have a great spectator area. It's pretty much a standing section or sitting up in the glass viewing area at the current facility. there would be a complete spectator area for the new facility on the aquatic side, which will make hosting competitions that much more satisfactory for all involved. Item number 3, it's been discussed, some candidates don't support taxpayer-funded festivals or events. There's a number of events in the community that we do support as the City of Timmins, and I want to continue my support for those, including Snowcross Summer Concert Series, the Great Canadian Kayak Festival, Rock on the River. The city is sponsors of all these events and many others, and I think it's important that we stay involved. I think the community's come a long way over the last 4 years in terms of providing year-round enjoyments and activities for the community to get out and enjoy, and I'll continue with my support for all those and look at enhancing it. I think when you look at Rock on the River, that's an event that we can partner with Timmins Festivals and Events Committee with the new municipal accommodations tax. 50% of those revenues need to go to a non-profit organization as well, and I think that would be an excellent organization to partner with to help them expand their events as well. There's also some social issues that we need to address on the quality of life aspect, and I continue the support for our newly formed Indigenous Advisory Committee. I think this is going to be a very valuable committee going forward, and I'm happy to see such desire from the community to participate in this committee. I think we have a number of issues that we need to work with in terms of making our community more inclusive, safe, and enjoyable for all, and I think this committee is the foundation of the work to be done on that front and addressing some of the issues with racism in our community as well, and I look forward to hopefully having the opportunity to work with that committee going forward. Another committee that we started this term is the Violence Against Women Advisory Committee. I think again this is an issue that needs to be brought to the forefront in our community. Domestic violence is a serious issue across our community and province as a whole. It doesn't always get the political attention that it should, and I think coming together with the agencies and stakeholders in the community to help improve, build the relationships, not just with the city and our departments, but different organizations throughout the city is an important step forward, and it's been a great committee to work with over the last year, and we're really just getting started on building those relationships and trying to discuss some of the improvements that can be made. So hopefully that will continue going forward as well. The next item is obviously mental health and addictions and some of the issues we have in our community with regards to that and the homelessness issues throughout the region. And these are issues that are solely Timmins issues. These again are provincial-wide issues, if not North American-wide issues, but issues that we need to work to address nonetheless. And I think we've had some great partnerships when you look at the living space and the opening of that facility in partnership with CMHA and DSAB. The city contributed a large financial investment to be able to get that facility off the ground, and that will be a warming center and shelter for people to get in and out of the weather in the winter or in the summer if it's too hot and have a place to stay. But on the main level, when it's fully operational, we'll have a resource hub that will allow the people that come to the shelter to access the proper services they need to get help, whether it be addiction counseling, whether it be mental health, or whether it be employment counseling, really bringing all the community partners to the people that need them instead of relying on people that may not have the ability to access the different locations around the city to try and find them. It's bringing the services to the people in need, and I think that's a great step forward. On the top floor, there's some transitional housing, so when we see people that are our routine guests in the shelter, there's the opportunity to possibly move them up to the transitional housing and get them, again, the help they need getting registered with the Social Services Administration Board so that they can get whatever funding is available to them and hopefully transition into a more permanent housing going forward. So that's one partnership that we've done that we need to continue working on innovative ideas like that. The other is the Youth Wellness Hub, which recently was launched and is another great concept in our community, led by youth in our community, to allow youth to come out and with other youth leaders who are running the Wellness Hub and have the chance to either interact socially and just have a little bit of fun in a safe environment, or also find someone to talk to and engage in some of the discussions if they have issues at home or they're going through something that they want a mentor to talk to. And I think that's one of the things that surprised me, I'll say at the end of last term, start of this term, was engaging with the youth and finding out some of the challenges and some of the concerns in the youth in our community and the lack of access to services that they have from a mental health perspective. And I think this Youth Wellness Hub will go a long ways, and I'm fully committed to continuing to work on partnerships on that front. The third pillar in my platform is affordability and access to services. On this one, I think the City of Timmins has done a great job, contrary to some of the campaign rhetoric that is out there. Over the last 4 years, the City of Timmins has passed three of the lowest six net spending increases in the past 16 years. 2018 was the second lowest net spending increase in the last 16 years, and 2017 was the third lowest net spending increase in the last 16 years. So we've done a good job, in my opinion, trying to keep these spending levels down while making investments in the community, in infrastructure and quality of life. But there's still work to be done, and it's an important focus. Obviously, we all understand the pressures on our community, and one group in particular that often feels the financial crunch a little more is seniors on fixed incomes. And in my platform, I try to address that by a proposal to increase the low-income seniors tax rebate from $300 a year to $500 a year. This is a rebate that we introduced this past term. And I think it's been taken up by a number of the community successfully, and I think as costs continue to rise, we need to also look at increasing that rebate to ensure that the people that rely on that can access it and hopefully stay in their homes with a little bit of financial assistance. Another topic in the number of seniors' homes that I visited and in town hall meetings with seniors in the community was the cost of transit. So one of my platform points is to look at reducing the cost of a monthly pass for seniors to $30 a month, which is equivalent to $1 a day. I think that's pretty important for the members of the community who rely on our transit system to get around and take part in either medical appointments or just social gatherings with their friends, or access the senior centers to get out and enjoy some activities in the community. Regardless of what they're doing, the cost of transit always plays a role in that, and it's hopefully something that council can look at going forward. Water and sewer rates have always been a discussion over the last couple of years. I'd like to see us freeze those next year and keep them at the current level they are. We have this debate about what the proper strategy is for water and sewer rates each year, but I think the residents want to see some relief there and at least holding stable for the time being, and at least provide a year of stability there where they're not seeing the rates increase like they have been. It hasn't come up really in a blunt manner, but I think gold manor is an important topic in this election. In my opinion, it should be a city-run, city-owned facility. I think our staff there do an excellent job providing services to the residents that are important to our community, and I fully support keeping the Golden Manor as a City of Timmins owned and operated facility. So I think this is an issue that, as chair of the Police Services Board, I've had a lot of opportunity to interact with other police services and boards across the region. And many of them who have made the switch to OPP have told me, if we could do it over again, we likely wouldn't, because of the close interaction you get when you have a community operated Timmins or local police service, and the service levels they're able to provide and the community concerns they're able to partner on, whereas the OPP is a more broader provincially run organization. You don't always get that close cooperation in terms of addressing some of the more local issues. Also equip them with the right partners in the community, so again, when they're engaging with those people who may have mental health needs or addiction needs, that they're working with the community groups who can best provide the services and resources that those people they interact with need. And then the last pillar of my platform is infrastructure. I think we've done a great job again on infrastructure in this community over the last 4 years. We've redone the highway from the Ray Hill area to Legion Drive, an $11 million project, which is the first major reconstruction work on our highway in a number of years. Just right now we're out relining all the water main lines on Riverside Drive. We've had a number of issues with those over the years collapsing, and that project there, again, several $millions, but we'll hopefully stabilize that area and alleviate some of the road issues that we've been having related to the water lines underneath. Of course, there's still more work to be done. Roads is always a hot topic in the community, as it is in most Northern Ontario communities. We have 993 roughly kilometers of roads in the City of Timmins, so it's not all going to get fixed overnight, but I think this past term we've done an excellent job starting to progress on some of the road reconstructions that need to be done. As I said, I think we need to expand the industrial rail park from an infrastructure standpoint. That's a key asset to our community, and we'll need some dollars allocated to do that. Upgrading our recreation facilities, and not just looking at the new multi-use facility, which can only move forward if we get provincial and federal funding. I've made that clear a number of times over the last couple of years, and it's still my position today that there is funding programs out there available at the federal and provincial level, but unless we access them successfully, then that facility will have to wait until we can. There's a number of other recreation facilities, whether it be our arenas or the skate park, that also needs some modernization and upgrading to ensure that our residents can continue to safely use them across the community, as well as our community parks. We're going through the remediation and upgrades at Hollinger Park right now, but I believe we need to see similar investments at the Mountjoy Historical Park, as well as the White Waterfront Park, as those are both the regional parks that provide a lot of good use to the community and a lot of enjoyment to the community as well. That sums up the 4 pillars of my platform for the most part. If you want to see the full details in case I missed a point or two, you can go to my website, steveblackformayor.com as well, and the entire platform is on the website as well. I think it would have to be 4 days condensed, and this is an area that I obviously disagree with some of the other candidates in terms of this event, but I believe it has been an important event for both our Francophone community and our Anglophone community, and the chance to bring those communities together in celebration has meant a lot. And when you see the people in the park enjoying the community together and celebrating some community pride, it's quite special. And I think we still need to, whether we shorten it to 4 days or not, include some Francophone aspects to it and make sure that we continue the foundation that the festival was built on and trying to make it as inclusive for everyone. We've had a mixed genre of music styles, whether it be country, rock, or pop, as well as Francophone music, and I think it's important to keep that going forward. I think it would be important for the city to take part in St. Jean-Baptiste Days, and that was something that was lacking, I think, over the years, was any significant involvement in the St. Jean-Baptiste Days. And obviously, my French isn't the best, as I'm not a Francophone myself, but I've tried to strongly represent the Francophone community as I understand the importance to it. The Francophone community, from my discussions, and there may be differences of opinions on there, want to see a day celebrated. The specific date doesn't necessarily lock them down. They want to still see some St. Jean-Baptiste celebrations, but I think in the bigger event, whether it was a Friday to a Sunday event or a Friday to a Monday, if Canada Day happens to fall on a Monday, as long as there's that Francophone contact and their Francophone content and they're included in the festival, I think that's what's most important to them, is to see their city recognize the importance of the Francophone culture in our community and include it in our events and festivals. The same thing with the Indigenous music. We tried to build a little bit more of that in the community, as we are one of the regional hubs for a lot of the Indigenous communities around us, so we tried to build a little more Indigenous content in this year and have a few more bands representing them. The whole goal of that event is to bring our community together in as large a celebration as possible, and in order to do that we need to accommodate different cultures in our community. Obviously it's going to depend on how this election goes. You have 2 divided camps, I'll say, in this election, and my opponent obviously has aligned himself with the 2 councillors who oppose the festival and the director of the Taxpayers Association running in this election who don't support the festival and likely wouldn't see it move forward in its current format if that side were to be successful in this election. That's a discussion we'll have to have and see how the remediation is going as the end of the year progresses in early spring. But from my discussions, I believe the site will be usable and able to host Stars and Thunder 3 if the council of the day decides to move forward with that. I think the major concern in terms of the ball diamond and in terms of past usages is the infield. Obviously, if we get some bad weather or inclement weather and there's many people and stuff walking over the infield, we've seen a lot of damage, and we had to bring gravel into that the first year that we ran the event as well, which isn't good for the use of baseball in the future. So we've already discussed, if an event did happen, that we'd likely want to fence that area off and then put the food vendors around the perimeter of that to keep people out of the infield so that we don't see any damage there, and that the baseball season can resume if it is interrupted for an event shortly after. I don't think necessarily is the utter discussion that's an issue, it's some of the discussion that's out there and the either lack of knowledge or the errors made in discussing it. You know, I hear in this campaign that as I addressed our spending increases, we've had the 2nd lowest spending increase in 2018 since 2003 and the 3rd lowest spending increase in the last 16 years in 2017. A lot of this campaign has been about fiscal responsibility. There's been discussions about depleting reserves. Our reserves, when we started this term in 2014, we're at $14.9 million. Our reserves now in 2018 are at $16.2 million. So we haven't depleted our reserves. And then the other issue is debts. And there's only 3 items that we've borrowed money for from other financial institutions at the City of Timmins. One is the police building, one is the medical building, and one is the wastewater treatment plant on Airport Road. And all of those projects were done and started in previous terms. So we haven't been ballooning the debt out of control in this term, unlike some discussion. One of the issues we struggle with is attracting people to our region. We're seeing a declining population. and I think we need to be willing to invest in more than just roads to be able to attract people to our region. Another item I didn't touch on the infrastructure item is the university. I think it's a very important item for us to continue to work on. I've started having discussions with 2 schools over the past couple of years. One of them is still in progress, but I think we have a great post-secondary education system in the city of Timmins with Northern College, College Boreal, and University de Hearst, but we're missing that 4th anchor, which is an English-based university. Yes, there's been some delays and issues between design and construction, and that process, unfortunately, doesn't always get talked about publicly as much as the public would want, but that's because there's legal implications involved. When you look at it from a council perspective, the council sets the policy and the budgets of the city. It's not an operational management group. That's not the role of council, that's the role of administration. So at the end of the day, there has been issues, and we are bringing in third-party engineers to do reviews and assess where the accountability should lie. But obviously, those discussions take place through mediation in the courts and not in a public format. It wouldn't be fair to anyone involved for me to be out saying I think it's this group's fault or this group's fault or a combination thereof. So when you look at the wastewater treatment plant, same thing, we had some issues there. We went through a mediation process and came to a settlement, and the city did get some dollars back on that project. The same process will take place if needed at the end of this project to determine where that accountability needs to lie. I think it's an important project, as you mentioned, for the east end of our community, and I'm happy that council has been willing to move that project forward and assign the resources needed to do it. I think it's something the east end residents have been looking forward to for a long time. There's some concern on our sampling program from the resident side, so we've agreed to do an enhanced sampling program and build into the 2019 budget whenever remediation work is needed around the lake or the river system to get it cleaned up as well. One of the things I'm very proud of this term is 2017 was a very tough year. We were going through major mine reassessments, and there was a possibility of having a major shift in taxation from the industrial class to the residential class if we didn't come to agreements with the mines. And I got involved with our finance department in the negotiations with those mines, and by the very late in the year we were able to come to an agreement, and thankfully to the cooperation of our local industry as well, we worked out what I believe both sides feel were fair deals and stopped a major shift. If we would have had to go with what the impact assessments were, we would have seen a major shift from the industrial class to the commercial class and the residential class. Fortunately, we were able to avoid that and come to deals with the industrial class to keep their taxation at a fair level and avoid passing that burden on to the residents and the commercial businesses. It's a very clear position-based election, and I'll respect the people's choice, whichever choice they feel we need to be. I'm optimistic and hopeful that the majority of the community wants to continue to see a progressive council moving things forward and investing in the community and acknowledging that quality of life is an important aspect. And yes, we may need to make some changes to some of the bigger things and make sure that they're financially viable going forward, but there's still great things for the community, and we need to be investing at those at the same time as roads and sewer and water infrastructure. You can have all the best roads in the world, but if they don't lead you to anything, then you got a challenge.